This show carries a government health warning.
Oh, no!
Rise and shine, sleepyhead. It's a brand new day.
Just sit right back and you'll hear a tale.
Now prepare to experience the most outrageous man on radio.
It's an excursion into the odd and into the very, very different.
Good morning!
Why do you think your own survival depends upon emotion from us? Should we pity you? Empathize with your plight?
Quality, quantity, and variety.
ROCKFLUX.
Let's get this show on the road.
But each of them subservient to that monitor in his brain, that intruder which instructs, coordinates, protects the project.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, folks. Thank you, everybody. What a day it has been. That's the song I should play, if you remember that tune. Even this morning. So, yeah, I was up every couple hours last night doing the draining thing. In fact, we'll start this show off. We're going to go with the, let's see, display capture. I'm going to take you over to YouTube. Let's open up a new window. YouTube. And see if we could find my videos. Now, the sound on this is not necessarily important, though there may well be sound. But check this out. Let's get to it. I'll put it on as big or larger as we can. This is the pumping that 2D size battery. See the water going in the bucket? It's hard to see, but that water there is coming from over here, and that's a cat litter box. Looks discolored because it's coming through the roof. And I've got to do that, and you'll see in a second, like all that water coming out of just that one container that fills up every, depends on how heavy it's raining, that thing could fill up every hour. Look at that. That's at least a third of that bucket, almost half. Isn't that crazy? And if that thing were filled higher, it could be half. Anyway, that's that video. Enough of that. Let's get back to the show. Now I'm going to show you something that most people wouldn't show you because this would seem embarrassing, but it's not embarrassing. This is on the other side of the room. This is a series of cat litter boxes, and that I have to empty out. I would say the ones that are hugging the wall get the most water. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? See the ones that are against the wall? This is at like an angled shot. And, of course, you see I got towels there and extra ones at the perimeter trying to protect anything so that the floor stays dry. And then I hang those towels and things on a line I have up there. It has rained like insanely here. Okay? I mean, yeah. So let's
Weekend weather!
Let's just take a quick look. You can see the light glistening again. That was same as yesterday. Today, it is not going to let up. It is currently raining 5 a.m. it says, which it's a few minutes until 100% chance of rain. It's 48 degrees outside here in the mid-Atlantic states, and it looks like 100% chance of rain, going forward. 48 degrees, 50 for the high, 100% chance of rain, overnight 39. And then tomorrow, we're supposed to have some dry days, but, tomorrow night it's going to be 37 degrees. I mean, that's a frost warning in May. Now, it's not like it's unexpected, but in other words, I've got to, at least tomorrow it's not going to be raining, so I'll be able to go out and cover the things that I think need to be covered. Again, I didn't put out, so this show is going to be talking about a lot of stuff. Anyway, that's your,
Weekend weather!
Hope that helps. Next week, if it's any consolation in the mid-Atlantic states, it's going to get up to maybe 70. And the nighttime temperatures will be back into 50. And the longer term forecast is more seasonal weather, which is because of the way things really are. The Earth has been cooling, despite everything you've heard, because those of us who keep records, all right, who keep booklets, who work in the garden day in, day out. And then we're going to talk about victory gardens. That's the title card here. Excuse me, I'll take a sip of coffee. I didn't get the best night's sleep. And then I slipped this morning and bashed my knee and my arm. Got Band-Aids on there. Hoping I'm making it through this show alive. I haven't been getting enough sleep, and I guess I haven't been eating enough. I don't know. I've been trying to lay off the carbs and sugars, and it does take the weight off you. But I've been also, I guess, stressed, so I think that it's just having some negative effects on me. And it's almost like, do you have a bagel with cream cheese, or like like a healthy cereal with a big with blueberries and something, so you don't like just keep gaining a pound or two a day, because that's how my metabolism works. Or do you suffer and then you're bending down to empty the cat litter box, and you stand up and like the blood rushes to your head, and you pass out practically. And it's like, I don't know. People say, "Oh, you got low sugar." It's like, I don't know. I get blood tests like sometimes twice a year, and I don't have anything like that. And like I said, I've lost enough weight over the, in other words, my weight is pretty much on par with a guy, your basic dude, I mean, I'm not ready to go. I'm not a model. But, I mean, I could wear regular clothes and stuff, all that stuff. But, yeah, I'm out of it. So between being tired and... So, yeah, we'll see what the caffeine does. If it doesn't give me a heart attack, it'll wake me up. But I look okay. I don't know. I feel semi-okay. Just a little groggy, though. But... yeah, I wanted to talk about this victory garden idea.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
I mean, and those of a certain age, may or may not have heard that term victory garden. And during World War II, not that I was around, during World War II, I wasn't even a glisten, that whole phrase, a glisten in my parents' eyes or something. Or glimmer, or glisten, I don't know. But I know enough about history, and I know enough. I've looked into it and studied it and heard about it and was taught it in school. But anyway, during World War II, because of shortages and the war effort, this country's been at war, like I said, pretty much since its, foundation, basically. It was founded by a Revolutionary War. That they asked the people to grow victory gardens in their yards or in their communities, for people who lived in tenement buildings or something. And of course, this is prior to really the suburbs becoming the suburbs. You didn't have Levittown, like that song that Billy Joel sang. I'm living here in Allentown. Well, the original lyrics to that were Levittown. And Levittown was this guy Levitt who came up with this first idea, this kind of semi-planned suburb type of thing. And of course, the suburbs exploded in the 50s. And, the rest of that. You've seen enough, if you've seen any of those old Leave It to Beaver or Father Knows Best or... I don't know what shows, all those shows, that was suburbia, right? That was life in suburbia, 50s. That's when it began. After the war effort, the GI Bill, and there was all kinds of things that were helping people, build get houses. And so that the common man, the soldier that came back, could get married, have a house, have a kid, and basically have a little plot, a tiny plot of land. I mean, it was, in one respect, it was a beautiful thing. In another respect, it was kind of pathetic because it's like I always say, this is my actual yard. Yesterday morning, before things, when the rain was just starting, you could see on the left-hand side by the morning show with TC, you could see there's some puddles on that, like drive-through next to my house. And you could see beat up fence. My white fence there needs some serious painting, which I got to do this. I started down towards the end, and you can see how it's like cleaner down there, but I got to go over that. And that door next to that, like kind of little, that's my mini greenhouse, and the door next to it leads to it's a garage. This picture was taken from my attic. From my house. So I have a thin, but it's a long yard. Now you may have a small yard. You may not have a yard. You may just have a balcony. You may just have a window that gets southern exposure or gets a lot of sun, a decent amount of sun. And the idea is that if you look already, and this picture, like I say, was taken yesterday morning. Of course, it rained literally the entire day. And you saw what I had to do with that, empty those buckets. See, if I didn't have all those ridiculous buckets there, and if I didn't go up every, hour, as the night progressed, the rain did slow down a little bit. But it's still a constant rain, and I have a couple of leaks in the roof, but see, the rain has just gone crazy, and I had them patched, and I had it down to where it was just kind of trickling. But we had some crazy deluges and winds. And so I've had to just go up there. So I was up there at 3, as it was slow. When it was slowing down, it would be like you'd go up at 3:30, 6 o'clock. Then I was up at 8:30. Then I was up there around 11:30. And I don't know if it was 1:30. And then before I came downstairs, it was 3:30. And then in the course of the day, it was raining real heavy. Sometimes it rains real heavy at night, and you're up there every hour. But yesterday, during the day, it was like that, almost every hour, hour and a half. And so I'm beat, even though I laid in bed for, a long time. I went to bed, laid down early, because I knew it was going to be a crazy night. So imagine living like that. And there's nothing I can do to repair it, because if you saw in that video all of the, the madness, and even if I show you this thing again, this looks disgusting, but you can see all that white, looks like white spray paint. That's that liquid rubber stuff. That doesn't work. I have tape, everything from duct tape to rubberized tape to sealants, all around everything, because to keep so that the water goes in these bins, and then I drain them so it doesn't make it to the second floor. And I was getting a couple of drops down on the second floor yesterday, because at one point it was just out of control. And today is supposed to be the exact same thing. I'm like, come on, man. So it's like what's his face says. So this is going to be great for the garden. If you look at the garden, the tree on the left-hand side that's right in the foreground, that's my apple tree. And there was an apple blossom on there the other day. But I think the rain, torrential rain, might have just knocked it right off. And if we get this frost warning, I mean, that could be devastating to that. If you look further back in that little area I have, with that lattice, you could, if you really look closely, you can see on the right-hand side of that little squared-in area, there's some lettuce plants I grew, which lettuce and kale I put in there. They can handle the frost. I'll just put a piece of burlap over them. You can see some burlap to the left of that thing, before you get to that real big bushy thing, that's a bunch of oregano and like chives, onions, chives. My greenhouse is filled with stuff. I already have like a pepper plant and some tomatoes and things like that growing. On the right-hand side, there's kale, herbs, more herbs, like I said yesterday, some basil, however you want to pronounce it. I've got potatoes planted under the ground. There's mint, peppermint. I planted some thyme. I've got sage growing there, Swiss chard. Everything's coming up, really good, And of course, I've got a rodent. Oh, and in the very foreground, there's the box before that little water thing. I built that little pond myself. I dug that out. The one part that's still covered, which I'm going to open this morning when I go out to feed the birds and the rat, which will inevitably go to the bird feeder. But I figure at least that's for the time being, until I can deal with this situation, I rather its focus be on the bird feed than my garden. But I've got to take that little plastic covering off. Those are radishes. I think there's beets and radishes in there. And they'll grow pretty good. And this continues back like twice that size. The bird feeder's back here, that's how far I keep it, as far away from the garden. If you look, there's my lounge chair where I sit in the sun, because this is south facing. So, our vantage point would be the sun in the middle of the day. And to the right of that little garage at the end of my property is a water catchment system I have that I use to water the plants with, that I just made out of a 30-gallon like garbage can type thing, and just put a spout, like an old thing you would put for a hose on the outside of your house. You could buy at a hardware store for a few bucks. And I would advise you do that. And all I did was saw the gutter that goes around, collects the water. Or if you have the area where it actually comes down and drains onto the ground, why drain it on the ground? Just take that pipe off or open up a portion and let that water come in, and that water goes right into that bucket. And I have an overflow. I just put a tube on the top of it. If it overflows into a secondary bucket, that bucket gets filled. Well, then it just goes back there on the grass where those little square walkway is that leads to my compost pile. And that's where I think the rat was hiding back there for a while, but I have no idea where it's hiding now. But as you can see, it's far enough from my house as you could possibly be. And it seems to take a path like right up that concrete path that leads to my house, the garage to the house. It walks up the middle of that so far. Once I seem to veer over to the left-hand side, it was fumbling around in the area of Victory Garden. I don't know if it's planning on trying to build a nest or something over there. But in that area, I planted catnip, a lot of it. And I even have some more to put out. And it looks like I might have had a cat in the yard come into the yard because there was like something buried. You know what I mean? Like they bury their what. And that wasn't there when I was planting grass seeds. So with all this rain, there's nothing there. But this coming week, I'm hoping I'm going to put more catnip all over the place. And I'm just hoping to get enough cats and the cat scent that the idea that there's cats in the area, that'll chase the rat away. That's the most humane thing you can do. Because there's no other way to get rid of them. My neighbor's, I hate to say it, but she's a hoarder. She has junk all over her yard, and there's a nest somewhere in her place. They're not living in my yard. They may be trying to. But I'm out there as much as possible, and they don't like to be around people. You'll never see them. Except from a window. That's how it is. Anyway, so I got the old game over hat on, and I forget what the subtitle of the show is. No food shortages if you have a backyard. Just grow your own. And I thought I'd talk a little bit about that and a little bit about everything else. I mean, I had a couple of questions, though, just weird things to think about. Contemplations, I guess, by the way. So,
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
the vlog talk. It's like, there's been a lot of people, they talk about this disinformation, ministry of truth thing and stuff. It seems to be the talk of everybody right now. And my answer is, that's another reason why you should get the then what. And remember, then the thing, it's up there. It's not, it comes in a hoodie, which is nice. And I have that exact same hoodie. But it, you get it in a shirt, a t-shirt, summer t-shirt, baseball shirt, any kind of thing. You could get it on a little collared shirt with a pocket, type of pocket tee or something. Or, a work shirt. But the idea is that that's my question to all of this stuff that's going on, where everyone else is just getting crazy about it. I'm going like, then what? I go, what are you going to do? Take somebody off social media, right? Now, I do understand that I don't know what they do with some people. They've blocked their banking or something like that. But I mean, for what? For words? For saying a word? I mean, we really got to look, this is a little bit worth talking about just for a bit as we get into this victory garden idea. Because the idea is to be self-sufficient and stay out of their way. Because I've said that a long time ago. It's like my idea, and that's why I say, try to live free, live cheap. Freedom is fun. And freedom is just being out of their way. Because I don't know what kind of game they're playing, right? I mean, then what? All right, the Ministry of Truth has decided that you have... Okay, that's great. Congratulations. Like, then what? You're going to haul you into a FEMA camp or something? You know what I mean? For like saying, for questioning, like the idea of science, our whole society and where's big tech during this stuff? The whole and the scientific community, the whole scientific method is built on the idea of questioning everything. That's what we do. We ask questions, we test, we make sure. Right? We make discoveries based upon tests, right? So, to me, in one regard, it's pathetically laughable. And I guess the idea that they would close your Twitter account is what they would have the power to close your Twitter account, or I guess this YouTube channel. And then I'd go and broadcast from Rumble or one of these other places. And then what? They would come after you there? I mean, how could you be afraid of it's not so much afraid of the truth, because that's what it is. But they're afraid of being exposed for what they are, for their own misdeeds or something, or they're afraid of just what? People just like having fun, talking about stuff, stories. I mean, isn't every book, every fictional movie and book disinformation in a sense, right? If somebody writes this, crazy story about something, you've seen them, right? Jack Reacher or James Bond, right? Watch a James Bond movie. There's usually some villain, some conspiracy guy that wants to take over the world and blah, blah, blah. And there's all these things. Well, I say a lot of that stuff is, the truth is stranger than fiction. But that aside, the point of the matter is it's disinformation because, the names have been changed to protect the guilty. But in reality, do you see what I'm saying? Hansel and Gretel is what? Disinformation. Right? You know, I mean, come on, Snow White, whatever, you know, I mean, the big bad wolf and, you know, I'm going to huff and puff and blow your house down. I mean, it's almost laughable, you know, when you think about it. And it's the same, and it's all tied into this.
Your papers, please.
You know, that kind of stuff. And it's as if, so this thing is like kind of, I understand why a lot of people are getting bent out of shape over it, because they realize that these people have an agenda, and maybe the average person needs to wake up to the idea that if they're going to go that far to create some kind of ministry of truth, to try to control what is spoken, words, right? I mean, we've already seen over the past several years the idea that people of words have, you know, destroyed people's lives, you know? I mean, when I think about the stuff people used to say when I was a kid growing up, words, you know, and you brush it off, man. You just brush it off. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I really don't know. Their end game seems to be more nefarious the more they come out with these things, because it would seem to me that if you had nothing to hide, you wouldn't be afraid of fiction, because that's what disinformation, you know, that's kind of the idea. It's just fiction. Somebody's telling a tale. It's like even a conspiracy theory. I mean, think back to, you know, the biggest conspiracy theory of all times, you know, the Kennedy assassination, you know, the man who, you know, questioned and, you know, threatened to do away with the alphabet agency that, you know. But I mean, you know, that's like 60-year-old conspiracy theory, you know, basically. And so for 60 years or so, 50 some years, you know, movies have been made, books have been written, shows have been talked about it, you know, even on cable and network TV. And there was nobody was up in arms other than critics saying, that's a conspiracy theory, or no, you're wrong. It was actually, it was Castro. No, it was the mob. No, it was Russians. You know, always the Russians are in there somewhere. No, it was, you know, it was the CIA. No, it was, you know, Hoover was involved. But life went on, and this was people, like I said, you know, there were always news junkies. There were always people there, and, you know, and that went on, and so what? And you like, you know, if you were really bored, you might, and you had the TV, you might, you know, stop on that channel for a second, watch a little bit of it, and go, this is nonsense, and move on. So why is all of a sudden that it's like thought crimes, you know, word crimes, tweet crimes, right? Video crimes. Like this video, they could cut this off at any given time, and they may well, just because of the discussion. And if they do, my point is made, and I'll be happy that we got this much of the show together, because it will have made my point, right? But the point is, this isn't that important, all right? This isn't even that important to me. This is me just trying to share some ideas helpful with you, which about my showing you physically a picture I took. That's from up in the attic. That's how high up my attic is. It's right next to the roof. See, the rafters are exposed, and that's why the leak. This is a 100-plus-year-old house. So it's not like you have 4x8 plywood, you know, boards up there, particle boards or some kind of the zip system. See, what they did was they built the roofs out of planks. And so those planks, that are like 1x6s or something like that. Well, imagine, you know how wood shrinks. If you don't, it does. And so imagine over 100+ years, you know, having that many planks form the basis of your roof. And then having the wind come along and blow away some tiles. And this is a Dutch colonial house, which means it's almost like it's not too different than what you would see in like in China or in the Orient. In other words, the part of the roof comes up like this, and then it goes like that. But it doesn't look like a pagoda. But I mean, it is like a double roof. It's like there, and then it comes down like that. And the part that comes down, that forms the attic, which is a third floor, even though this is it's a 2-story building technically. But when you go up to the attic, it's technically like it's the third floor, but that upper roof, the top, would be like is as high as like a fourth story. And that's why I wasn't able to get anyone to come in and just patch it. I had one guy come, he was ready to do it for like $300. I don't know what it was. It wasn't much money, and I had the cash ready for him. All right. But his ladder wasn't tall enough to get up there. And all he had to do at that time, which if he could have done that, oh man. At that time, this was last year. Because things just, they get worse. You have a couple tiles off, and the wind then you got a gap, and the wind gets under the gap, and it like throws the other one off. So it gets worse. And that's why it's gotten to the point where it's pretty bad right now. And so the only way I could get, they would have to, I'd have to have someone build I don't even think a bucket truck could get up that high. It could, conceivably. A guy could get up there in a bucket truck. One of the lineman type of guys, works on high tension wires. But finding somebody, you know what I mean? It's like, otherwise, I called around and people were saying, we don't do we don't do roof patching anymore. What we'll do is we can put a new roof on for 15 or 20 grand. We got to come out and check. And I'm like, all right, forget it. There's no way I'm coming up with that kind of money. So anyway, I systematically was patching it from the inside the best I could in the areas that were problematic. But there's nothing I could do when it's raining. And so if we get this summer, I just have to hope. I'm just going to have to bite the bullet. And hopefully in June, we'll get a week of, a dry spell. Like this week, we're supposed to get 4 days of sun. Now, but you can't trust the forecast. But in the summertime, you could kind of trust it a little bit more because the summer, you tend to have a week of dryness, And when that happens, excuse me, coffee on my thing and mustache. When that happens, I'm going to open up the rafters because that's what I've patched. But it's just patch over patch over patch over patch. I got to tear all that stuff down. I'm going to open up a square because I literally could stand on like just a little platform, and I'd be able to get my head, my chest and my head up outside the roof, right? And probably my arms out enough to patch these areas. And then my plan is to create this hinge thing to close the hole that I opened up, right? With some kind of seal, gasket seal or something, almost like in a ship. Well, that would be the ideal, to have like a hatch, that I could really, but, some kind of thing to pull it tight. But the idea is to patch the areas that are bad, fix them. And then worst comes to worst, even if my hatch wasn't perfect, I might even be able to find one of those. Sometimes they have these, they're like skylight things, they're like plastic bubble skylight things on hinges, right? And put something like that up. But even if it's not really watertight, and I get a couple of leaks, at least there I could put like a 5-gallon bucket in the spot where it leaks, and it's okay, it's raining tonight, 5-gallon bucket up there. I don't have to worry about it. I'm going to snooze away in the morning. Maybe half the bucket will be filled up from that little drop. All right? And play some rub-off tickets, and maybe I'll get this roof fixed. But I'm not about to take a second mortgage out on a house where my mortgage taxes and insurance are only $200. So this is a fluke thing that happened. It's weird. I do feel almost like victimized, but what can I say? You know? And then and then I'm dealing with a rodent in my garden, right? So that brings us to that. That's the transition. That's the end of this.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
And let's talk about this other stuff. So forget about, this disinformation thing. You got to get away and not worry about that. Get away from areas where you're under their thumb, right? Because these are megalomaniacs. They've got some totalitarian plan, obviously. If they didn't, they wouldn't be getting so crazy about, oh my God, Elon Musk took over Twitter. Twitter's a frickin' app. It's an app. I mean, here, let's imagine. I try to tell this to people all the time, and they just don't listen to me. What did you do? I mean, if you're a certain age, this doesn't apply. But the point is, before Twitter, what did you do? You lived life. Before the iPhone, the smartphone and stuff, you lived life. I mean, there were always phones and stuff like that. I told you I was a general manager of a radio station. I was using cell phones back in the early 90s because I had to stay in touch, because of the, transmitter and, and all of that sort of thing. But, people in business, and when I used to do these go on expeditions, we used to use satellite phones, right? So we could, communicate from Antarctica, the Himalayas, or the North Pole, and Amazon. We used to do that too. So I know all about all this kind of stuff, and I've used all this technology. But the point is, for the average person, though, and then when I wasn't doing those things or using them as tools for a project, I just lived life, and life was great, and life was fun. And I certainly, before Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, because most of my webcasting and stuff I was doing, we were doing from our own servers and internet, like I was talking about a little bit yesterday. Like your websites were like channels and stuff, and so you didn't need to have some, branded site where everybody went to. Right. So you could get in on a discussion and get some kind of dopamine hit or something weird like that. Right. That wasn't a big deal. So, so what? They kick you off of Twitter. And then, well, of course they have these other things like Getter now and different things. But I mean, you have a life. And they talk about food shortages. So, so let's assume, okay, so disinformation, you're somebody who's outspoken, and so they're going to come after you, and basically they'll kick you off of social media, they call it. It's not social. You're not being social. You're just being, you're being, I don't know. You're being a little bit overreacting, and you're obsessed, and you're kind of addicted to a thing. And trust me, I'm saying this in a kind way because I was kind of addicted. I was into it. I was doing the Twitter thing every day a couple of years ago. I was getting into discussions and stuff. And I would get I'd get into it, this chair. So I don't care. Kick me off of whatever. End this show. I got 60 of them. I'm on other platforms. They'll probably survive long enough for you to dig through and take the lesson that I'm about to teach you. But it's not much of a lesson because it's pretty much common sense, and it's the reason I call this Victory Gardens is because it's been done before in the USA. All right. And so what you do is you get seeds. And, oddly enough, there are at Walmart, the Dollar General, Dollar Tree, and other types of places, you can still find seed packs for under $1. Sometimes you get a couple packs for $1, or even if you paid $1 for a pack of seeds. All right. And once or you could take you see that apple tree, just to the right of the word Victory Garden, there's that tree. I grew that from an apple that I ate. I'm serious. I put it in with some seed starter, which you get a bag of seed starter, and these little packs, you might have seen them. There's like 6 little holes, little containers in there. And you wet some seed, some soil. They have stuff that's called seed starter. It's got nutrients in it that help the process, but you could use any kind of decent soil. Moisten it and put it in those, little holes, and then just put seeds. And I put an a couple apple seeds in. And I have another apple tree further back. You can't see it. It's out of the frame. That one's not growing as big as that, but it's its companion piece. The idea is in time, so they got the cross-pollination. I don't really expect to get apples this year, but I'm hoping the other tree catches up and they blossom at the same time. That's the plan. I have a third tree, but that one seems to be almost like a dwarf tree. I don't know what happened to that one, but it's living. And it's got leaves on it, but it's not getting tall. Like that one's about 18 feet tall, 16 feet tall, or something weird like that. That big wire that's coming from the house to the garage is like an old power wire. That's the power for the garage. Not that I need it. And eventually I'll probably have that taken down. Because my idea is because I have in my little mini greenhouse, you can't see it in this picture, but on top of it, I have this little cheap solar panel. And I have an exhaust fan in there because a greenhouse will get hotter. Like you can't imagine. In the middle of summer, it could get over 110 degrees or Fahrenheit. So I have a fan in there that just runs automatically. When the sun's out, it runs. It's a DC fan. The whole getup. The fan I had, it was like this battery or plug-in fan I had gotten a long time ago. And I've had it for a long time. And I realized, that was battery powered, so it must be DC. And it had an AC adapter on it, which means it was taking AC and converting it to DC. And a solar panel is DC. So what I did was just I have the solar panel on the roof of that greenhouse, right, here, right? The solar panel's a little back further, right about there. I should have put it in the frame. And so whenever the sun's out, I just connect that direct to the fan. And there's an on-off switch on the fan, but I have alligator clips, and I have it just clipped to where the batteries used to go in. And I could just take that clip off. In the wintertime, I take the clip off, and then I cover the spot, where the fan is, so that the room itself stays warm. But you don't have to do anything weird like that, but it is helpful. And if you do have a porch or something like that, you can see, the price of lumber today is pretty expensive. But if you look at it closely, you can see it's just basically 2x4, 2x6 construction. Very sturdy. I put some concrete at the base. The wood at the bottom is the treated lumber. I have rocks, gravel down there. And I paint, and I use linseed oil on my wood, and I coat it every year, and other parts I paint. On the right-hand side, some of that wood, I paint that wood. And anyway, yeah, that's that's it. That's the garden. And in my case, I lucked out that I got this cheap house. You know, the front of the house is that thing you see where that car just went by up top, and the glistening because it's raining out there. You can't see the raindrops. It's such a crappy camera, but just as well, it would just freak me out. But it's raining right now, and that light's reflecting off the street, sidewalk, and street. But what I'm saying is that it's going to rain. You can have rain catchment systems that you don't have to buy stuff, like get crazy. If you go pricing things, you could be like overwhelmed and say, oh, I can't afford to build. It's like you can build a raised bed garden out of anything. I've got boards here. You know, some of this wood I purchased, some of it was scrap wood, you know, found wood, people throwing out things. You know, you have to be inventive, right? But say you don't have the space I have, which is a fairly decent amount of space. I produce enough food that I could basically feed a family, but it's just me and my cat, you know. So I have extra, and I give away to, you know, the people nearby. But I inevitably, stuff just goes to waste, which is really sad. So I have plenty. I have more than plenty. And it grows primarily because of the rain. And when it's not raining, I capture the rain in these I have one behind the greenhouse. I have another water catchment system from the garage, the garage roof. See, it's not like I use it for drinking water. I mean, I could put one of those Berkey filters and drink the water, you know, in a dystopian Mad Max future. But I mean, plants don't care about, you know, the water. I have a screen over top of it. Last year I put like a carbon filter over the one. I may do that again this year if I could buy a cheap little, like a carbon thing you put in front of an air conditioner even. Just something, just an extra thing to catch particulate matters or, you know, to clean the water. But it's rainwater, right? And I have painted the roof of my garage a while back, and it was a non VOC. You know, it was like I have to do something to it this year anyway. But either way, what I'm trying to say is that it doesn't seem to be affecting the plants or anything. Okay. After a while, all the VOCs go off if you paint, or roofs, you know, dirt, even, and if there's bird whatever on a roof, that's just fertilizer for plants. Gets in the soil, and then the soil filters it. The soil's nature's filter, you know, the plants, the stems, you know, and all that stuff. The only thing you have to worry about is things like maybe tomatoes and things that have a lot of liquid in them. And so I usually I'll water my tomatoes with a hose, you know, or something like that predominantly. Yeah. Just for the idea that I won't, because it's mainly water. A tomato's mainly water. And squash. You know, things that, you know, that are, you know, that balloon out because of, you know, I want, you know, whatever's going in there to be somewhat whatever. But I use clean soil. It's the you know, I've been pretty good about the fertilizer and buying stuff over the years. I've been doing this gardening for like at least 6 years, I think. I forget when I got this house, 6 or 7 years ago. But anyway, imagine if you had, what if that white door that you see there and that, you know, like cinder blockish thing, the garage, what if that were your house and it ended at the end of what I call the greenhouse there, and that all you had out back was that little patio, and that was like the end of your townhouse or something, and there was a fence there, but it faced the sun. You got sun. You could still grow enough food, you know, grow herbs and lettuce kale, chard. You know, like this year, I'm thinking I'm only going to plant one or two. I get crazy, and I was like having all these tomato plants and all these pepper plants, and it's just I end up giving this stuff away to people. And yeah, I'm no interest in selling it, nowhere to sell it, and I don't want to have to go sit somewhere at a table and try to sell my wares, you know. So this year, I think what I'm going to do is probably just grow 2 tomato plants and like really take care of them, you know, like prune them, you know, keep an eye on them daily and just make them very good producers so that it produces enough tomatoes for me. Right. And if there's a few extras, I'll give them away to friends or somebody, or, you know, somebody who would stop by or something. And it's the same with peppers. I'm not going to grow a ton of like jalapeno peppers and banana peppers and all these things. I did last year, and I gave away some to some friends. But I mean, there's you know, I don't eat that many. How many peppers can you eat? So I'm going to try to maybe grow some bell peppers this year because I do eat those. I've got onions in the ground, garlic. I have every herb you can imagine. I need to plant rosemary, though. I don't have that. So let me backtrack. That's enough about me. Okay? So let's talk about you. So say you have a window. I've said this before in previous shows, but the viewership on this show is so low that it seems I get different people at different, you know, different days, different times. And I don't care about that, right? If I could help one person, right, that's all, then I succeeded. And it's the same with, you know, with you. You know, it's like, I'm not on some ego trip. I'm not monetized. I'm not looking to make a fortune on anything. I'm not looking to make anything, right? In fact, if you get these shirts or you know, support this site, chances are, like, you listen to my songs, I told you I make a fraction of a cent in royalty, a fraction or a penny. You know, you buy a shirt or a cap or something like that. It's like, I don't know, maybe I'd get 50 cents. Nobody's buying this stuff, so I'm not really making anything, but, you know, I'm trying to help people, and it's one of those things that's cascading or, you know, snowballing. Say you have a shirt that says, "You don't know what you don't know." Okay? And someone sees that when you're out and about, right? And that makes a mental thing in their mind. They're like, "You don't know what you don't know?" Or everything you know is wrong, right? They go, "Well, what's that? What does that mean?" Or then what? Right? Then what? You know? Or like I say, the Be Nice shirt that you've seen that. You know, to some sourpuss. And you're wearing a shirt that says, "Be nice." Right? What are you so angry about? What are you worried about? What's all this disinformation? Don't say, you wrong speak, wrong think. You're like, be nice, relax, you know? Anyway, that's what I do. I do that because, you know, we could all, you know, let's be realistic. If you could get one person to chill and see things the way they are, see the light, so to speak. That's why I say ignore the media. The media and politicians are puppets, right? But back to this victory garden idea. You say, "Well, I live in an apartment," or I don't have a backyard. Well, okay. Well, do you have a window somewhere in your house? You know, do you have a house or you're renting an apartment? Do you have a balcony? If you have a balcony, great. You could probably grow enough food for yourself, believe it or not. Because, you know, you can't, not for a family of 5, but I mean, if you have a balcony, chances are if you're living in a small apartment, it's probably just you or maybe you and somebody else. But if you have a house or an apartment and you have a window or two that's south facing or mostly south facing. See, the reason I say that is The sun rises in the east and sets in the west, as everyone knows. So that means that if it's south facing, that the morning sun right through the evening sun is going to be facing your garden. Now, it doesn't have to be completely south facing, because as long as even if you just get 8 hours or so, you don't need 12 hours or whatever it is in the summertime, 10 hours, right? Plants like the more sun they get, the better. But, that's why solar panels and solar power isn't for everyone. Because, there are just certain places it just doesn't work. In the wintertime, people get a lot of snow on their roofs, or, they don't have the square footage to put enough panels to run their appliances. If they do have it on the roof and it's covered with snow and ice, forget it, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, so you've got a window. Everyone's probably, unless you're on the shady side of the apartment building, which is unfortunate. Though you can use LED grow lights that use hardly any electricity. I just got my electric bill. It was in my email. I get my bills. And my bill this month is like $24. And I have in my back, it's like the mud room. I call it the back. It's not really a porch. There's a back door that leads to my kitchen, but there's a little walk space and a storage. What was once a storage closet there. I took the door off it, and the door from there I put on that. I repurposed. I put on that greenhouse. So the greenhouse has the door that used to be on my back porch, so to speak. But it's like I say, it's like a mud room. It's just a walk through. It's small. But I put in that closet that used to, I guess the previous owner used to store stuff in there, like tools or things for his garden or yard. I don't know whatever. Well, I just put a platform down, at like counter height, just out of wood, pieced together, nothing crazy, scrap wood, it doesn't really matter, and doesn't even have to be wood, as long as it's a sturdy surface, right? You could go to, one of these dollar or Walmart or discount stores and buy some kind of table, for $14.95 or something, right? Or find something that you could repurpose, somebody's throwing out an ironing board, right? Or something, and you could saw it in half and have two to make a platform. Do you see what I mean? You have to get creative if you survive and thrive sometimes. But you don't have to spend a lot of money. But whatever, you just got to look around and see things. You might have an old table in your garage or an old thing that you don't like anymore. End table, coffee table, or some weird thing laying around. You go, that could be a counter. That could be a top that I could place here. And hopefully you have some tools and some knowledge. And if whenever you're using power tools, make sure you observe, safety, things. But that said, let's go through the worst case scenarios to the best case scenarios. The best case scenarios is you have a yard like I do, and you're able to do something. And you're not plagued by rodents, which is a problem I have that I will solve, okay? And you don't have a leaky roof on top of it. Oh, man. But that said, let's say you just live in an apartment and one of your windows in your apartment gets sun. But your windowsill's only a windowsill width. Well, that's not enough, So you have two options. One, you could put some kind of, depending on the landlord or whatever, or what you want to do or how creative you are, you could put a table in front of that area, right, that gets that sun, south facing or mostly south facing. Just some kind of table. They used to call like a card table, and then, some kind of table, foldable table, collapsible tables. Those things aren't expensive, And anyway, you might even find one at a thrift store. See, that's another thing. You can go to you can go to a thrift store. Every time I do that, these guys.
Really funny. Really funny.
You go to a thrift store and repurpose something. So, like, look at the back of the store, and they might have some objects, that are weird things that you have no use for whatsoever, but they're made of wood or some kind of plastic or something like that. And you go, I could use part of that for to build this countertop or whatever. Anyway, use your creativity. You're a human being. You have a mind. All right. If you don't, or you can extend that small windowsill by putting getting a board, which you could find at a box store, where they sell lumber. You don't have to buy something that's necessarily 8 feet long. They have pieces of wood. And so maybe you could find a piece of wood that's 4 foot by 12, by 12 inches, by a foot, 12, but you see what I mean? And you can fasten that to your window. Well, you make the decision. You could screw down into your windowsill that if to support it, or you could just, have some kind of L brackets on the wall. And when you leave the apartment, you get some spackle, hopefully, most apartments are just white paint or whatever. You spackle, unscrew it. You spackle the holes. When the spackle dries, you go over it with a little bit of flat white paint. And no worse for the wear, and hopefully you get your security deposit back. Or you could just put a table right in that area. All right? Because the sun's going to come down at an angle anyway, right? If it's a south-facing thing. And you get yourself some pots. And you could find those just about anywhere at the cheap stores, right? And, and you don't need something fantastic, right? I mean, there's so many different things you can do. It's I was doing seed starters in those red drinking cups that people use at keg parties, plugged a few holes in the bottom. When you buy at the store, you buy a salad or some pre-made food or something, it comes in this plastic thing. Well, you put that down, and you could put a couple of these cups in there, plastic cups, any kind of plastic cups, you can buy those things. And just drill, you don't even need to drill, use a nail or any kind of sharp surface, to plug some holes in it. Or not plug, open some holes, and put, say, 6 of those things across in this tray that you got a salad thing in, all right? I'm giving you the basics. You put some soil in the top of those things and a seed, right? In this sunny part of your house. You could do this in the middle of the winter because if the heat's on, that's all, sun and heat, right? And you just, and water. And what you do is you water from the bottom so that the water comes up, through those holes into. So that trains the roots to come down and builds strong roots. And you can put in, 2 tomatoes, a pepper, whatever your favorite herb is, if you like oregano or if you like parsley or if you like, whatever. Think of just even 6 things, right? A lettuce and a kale, say, or a lettuce and a Swiss chard. They grow easy. Lettuce grows like weeds, man. A couple of lettuce, so 6 or 8 of those things even. Actually, if you did it right, you wouldn't even have to put a board because those cups are so thin. You could probably just line them across your window and put some kind of thing. Or maybe you could find one of those window box things that people put outside. Well, you put the window box inside. Just make sure it's secured so it doesn't fall over. All right? Anyway, you get yourself a bag of soil. Doesn't cost that much money. You could get a giant bag of topsoil right now. I bought it, I'll tell you, Ace Hardware, for $5.99. I couldn't believe it. With all the prices, the way they've gone up, right? You should buy a bag of soil and just store it in your garage for now. It's just dirt. It's not going to do anything. Dirt doesn't like rot. And get some cheap seeds. It costs a couple of bucks. So I'm talking about some cheap plastic or paper cups, right? A pack of cups at a Dollar Tree. You probably get a dozen, those like kegger type party cups for $1.25. You could probably buy the seeds you want for a couple of bucks, right? And look around at some stuff you've bought from the store, containers that things came in your refrigerator or whatever, and don't throw it out, right? Reuse. It's environmentally safe, sustainability, right? Something that you can use as the base so that the water doesn't fall on the floor or on your windowsill or on your table, whatever you put there, right? And get a bag of dirt. You could probably do that whole thing for like $10 to $20. All right. Create yourself a little mini window garden. And if you plant lettuce and kale, right? Say 2 lettuce plants and a kale plant. Kale grows pretty crazy. And they're not big, super rooted things. What you'll have to eventually do is look out as they get bigger out of those paper cups. You're going to want to get bigger pots. Like the next size up. And they have plastic, cheap pots you could get. Like these black, cheap plastic pots. Right? They're not even pots. They're made of plastic. And if you don't like the fact that they're just black plastic pots that you could buy for $1 or a couple for $1 or something, a couple bucks, get creative and paint them. Paint them to match your room or something, or get your kids involved and put down some craft paper on the kitchen table or whatever, and let your daughter or whatever, paint flowers on them. And you know what I mean? You can make it a project. Hey, we're going to grow our stuff. Anyway, if you have sun, if you have soil, and you have seeds, you're going to, they'll germinate. Not every seed germinates, so a lot of people put 2 seeds in, like each container, in case one's a dud, right? It happens. So you get like a couple, so you end up to the point where you transplant out of these paper cups or these kegger type cups into a larger container, all right? And remember, you got this bag of soil for $5.99 that's got plenty of soil to fill about 6 or 7 of those larger containers. All right. And those are your final ones. All right. I'm not talking about big, huge planters. All right. Some people get crazy. The roots of certain things just don't need to go down that deep. Some things need it, like what they call a tap root, and it has to go way down. As long as you're watering, all right, every day, you're training this thing to live here. I grew a cherry tomato vine in a window that overtook my window. I let it get out of control. This is years ago. This is about 20 years ago. I got so many cherry tomatoes, it was insane. It just covered my entire window, right? It vined up. And it was all coming out of like one pot, right? Because what it was doing was the vines would, as long as I was watering it, very frequently, and I was getting a lot of sun. So that's the key. You got to have sunlight. You have to have warmth. All right. Even in the winter, but you could do this in the wintertime in the house. All right. In the summertime, it's not a problem because it's warm enough, as long as you don't, doesn't get down to a frost. So you have a couple of lettuce plants pop up, a kale plant pop up, a couple of your favorite herbs, and a tomato plant or 2. All right? So it's like 6 or 7 pots there that fill a window or a table cheap-ass table right underneath your window. And so you take a leaf off of, once they reach maturity, you take a leaf off of one of the lettuce plants, a leaf off the other lettuce plant, and a leaf off of the kale plant, and you chop that up, and you make yourself a little salad. See, the secret of like making salads is like you chop up the leaves, right? And you'd be surprised it'll like kind of puff up. And then you could put in some herbs. If your tomatoes are growing, when they grow, you slice up a tomato, put a tomato in. If you're a pepper person, and maybe add a pepper plant instead of some kind of herbs or something. And now you got yourself a healthy salad every day. Or you've got herbs if you're eating spaghetti, right? Good old-fashioned spaghetti, which everybody should have, like, a dozen boxes of those spaghetti. You could buy them for around a buck, and you get a lot of meals out of it, spaghetti. Even those half boxes, I get like 4 or 5 serving, something like that. You get these little cans of sauce, right? This big. Sometimes you could get them definitely less than $1. You don't have to buy like Prego or Ragu or something that comes in a jar that spoils. You get these little tiny cans. It's just sauce. It says look in the ingredients. It's better for you. It just says ingredients: tomato sauce and sometimes citric acid, which is like vitamin C type of thing. It's a preservative. And look at the dates. And if it's got like, expiration date, late 23, late 24, great. I mean, that's good in your cupboard for a couple of years. And, and then you throw in your fresh oregano or parsley or whatever when you're making that, with this can of sauce to season it up. You're just boiling water. And then you're going, yeah, but what if the power goes out or something ridiculous like that? Well, if you have a house or you have a balcony or something and a hibachi, I've said this before, you don't have to cook hot dogs and hamburgers and steaks on those things. You could take just a regular stainless steel pot, and you could put newspapers and slice up boxes that you got things that you ordered on Amazon or something in there, just so you could generate enough. Yeah, you cut it up into strips, right? It's a real DIY thing. I mean, it'd be nice if I was demonstrating the whole thing, but I think you get the picture. And I save boxes in my garage, though I got to throw out a lot. I have too many. And it's just enough to boil water, right? And so you boil the water, throw the pasta in. While it's hot, you could put another kettle on there, or a tea kettle or something, so you can make yourself some coffee or tea, right? And bring that in and put in the can of sauce right in the pot, okay? You don't have to worry about washing up and stuff like that. Mix that in with some fresh herbs that you've grown in your window, and you've got pasta, and you could serve pasta for 2, right? With a salad for 2 people. And we're talking about a meal that serves 2 people, that part of it you've grown. The first couple salads paid for it, for your garden, which just your window garden, which keeps giving you, food all summer or all year long, really. And the pasta, which you bought, if there's some supply chain disruption or something like that, I'm telling you, a dozen boxes of pasta would last you, you're not have to eat it every day. If you have kids, you get like a dozen boxes of mac cheese, and you buy the cheap stuff they have on the bottom of the shelf at Walmart because it's all the same. Forget the brand name. And you can make that mac and cheese on a hibachi, on a balcony, or on a back, your if you have a yard, in your backyard grill. And this is what I'm trying to say about Victory Gardens. If you have a yard, you could go full blown like I have, right? Which is a work in progress even. I have a lot of plans for that still, or you can be as simplistic as just growing salads and herbs in your window. If you have a balcony in an apartment, you could grow even more and probably have like 2 tomato plants and some pepper plants and maybe even onions and garlic. And if you have a yard or even just a small townhouse with a patio, you could even grow more. And you could just grow these things out of pots. You don't have to dig into the ground, the soil necessarily. And there are all kinds of things, all kinds of containers that you can use. So the thing is, if I were you and you're concerned about this kind of stuff right now, okay, I would go to a place, a hardware store, like an Ace or something. I found it at my Ace that's not that far from here. And I was getting a soil bag for $5.99. I think it was on sale. It was normally $6.99. But it was like a big bag. And I used a lot of it already, but I still have like a bunch to fill a couple pots. I'm using it for stuff inside that mini greenhouse in the very back of the picture across from the word The Morning Show. Because I'm growing in there. I have some basil, tomato plant, a pepper plant, catnip, because I told you I want to attract cats to scare away the rats. The rat. Because you don't want pests in your garden eating your food. But I'm growing so much stuff, and with all this rain, one of the the bitter with the sweet, or the it's like last night was hell. I feel better now. I'm drinking some coffee, and I felt like crap earlier. But today's going to be a pain going up and down the stairs, doing that pump thing, which I showed you at the opening of the show. And if you haven't seen it, it's available on YouTube. There's a picture of me with I forget it. Look, where is it? Let me just go. I'll show you. Yeah. This is going to come in big because this camera no, it's not. There it is. You can see my shoes. The white stains on my sneakers are those are my house shoes, because Clorox spilt on them. And even though that looks really gross, the thing on the bottom is the green thing is the pump that I use. It takes 2 D-size batteries, and that water in there was what is like from one going upstairs once. And the only reason it looks dirty like that is because it's filtered through, old wood and stuff, the roof. And I just dump it out. Fortunately, I have a window in the attic, and I dump it out the window. Okay? It's one of the things that's what I'm going to do. It's going to rain. It's 100% chance of rain. If you look outside, the reason the street's shiny is because it's raining. But this camera's such a piece of crap. I only paid $29.95. It's a USB camera. That it's not going to pick up raindrops. All right? But it is going to show you that the ground is wet. So, and this picture here, you could see the wetness of the dirt on the left-hand side by the morning show. This is early yesterday morning, and everything's wet. So, it is what it is. But nature will provide for you, and you can grow seeds. And then here's the thing. When I told you about those tomatoes that overtook my windows, those grape tomatoes, cherry tomatoes, whatever you want to call them. Those tomatoes, those seeds I had gotten, just like that apple tree you see in the foreground, that big tree, that's from a seed that I ate, an apple I ate that I bought at the grocery store. It wasn't even listed like organic or anything like that. It was a seed. I did plant a couple of them, and they all didn't take. So and there's a way of doing it. There's something where you float this, let the seed dry, sit it there, but you float it in water, and it's either whether it sinks or floats determines whether the seed is good. You'd have to, you got to do some research, and there's plenty of YouTube videos to help you with this stuff. But I'm saying avoid the people that are trying to tell you to purchase, and it's cost a lot of money to do this. It doesn't. You can grow in your window for $20 and feed your family for the whole year of at least salads and some spices to put in some pastas that you bought every time you go to the store Grab an extra little can of sauce or tomato paste or one of those $1.25 things of pasta. Some mac and cheese if you got kids, and some can, and things like puddings that you don't have to refrigerate. Puddings and jellos, and some canned fruit that say in natural juice, that aren't in heavy syrup. Because you want to survive and thrive. You don't want to get sick. You end up with type 2 diabetes or something, over sugar yourself. Right? So just keep a normal pantry, but keep a full pantry. And I mean, even when I say pantry, slash that. Cabinets above your kitchen cabinets. Keep stuff there. And you keep a couple jars of peanut butter and jelly for kids or for yourself. A box of saltine crackers, right? Do you know how cheap they are? So what, you like a certain brand of cracker, you think it's whole wheat, they have a wheat saltine that's lightly salted or something. Grab a couple boxes of saltine crackers. Those things will last you 2 months if you have 2 boxes of those. Because there's like 4 of those packs in each one. You get 1 of those a week. You get hungry, you make a little peanut butter and jelly little snack, cracker snack if you're hungry for something sweet, a treat, right? If you're not allergic to peanut butter, or get they have those other butters, almond butters and other things. Some of those things cost a little bit more. But what I'm trying to say is use common sense and put things like spaghetti, little cans of just generic sauce, generic mac and cheese, the kind of puddings or jellos that you don't have to refrigerate, some canned fruits and vegetables that aren't in heavy salts or sugars, depending on which is which, right? Maybe a couple of containers of just generic peanut butter and generic jelly. Always check the expiration dates, right? And spices. Look at the spices where they have the spices for $1, right? Because you want to spice up your food, right? You're making some kind of thing. And you make a homemade soup, right? And so, get onion powder, right? Avoid the salty things, Just get the stuff that's pure seasonings. Get some onion powder and different things like that. Chili powder. Get some cans of beans. Different kind of beans are more healthier than other kind of beans, right? With kidney beans. I forget what it is. Do your research. There are things that are, there's something called the glycemic index. So if you have any health problems or something like that, you want to get stuff that's low in sugar, You don't want to overdo the carbs or sugars and stuff like that. So it's not healthy for you. But what I'm trying to tell you is that you'd be surprised that if every time you went to the grocery store, you just bought an extra can of beans just for the next 6 months, say. Because, I don't think if anything is going to happen, and there's no guarantee that there's going to be food shortages or anything, but in case there is, remember, this is stuff you're going to eat anyway. Buy an extra can of beans so that you might want to make yourself a chili, and get yourself a $1 thing of chili powder, right? Which you could usually find in the spice rack, right? You don't have to have meat, in chili, right? You could put other ingredients in there, other things, fillers, get some, some canned vegetables and if you look at some of the like salsas that are made, they'll put things like little corn and tomatoes, like you can get like diced tomatoes, right? Things like that. And so you get a cheap can of diced tomatoes, a cheap little little can of corn, some kidney beans or some kind of beans. Right, and you mix that in a pot with some chili powder and maybe some other seasonings you like. I mean, if you want to put ground beef in it for the time being, that's fine. But if you can't get the meat or it's really expensive, And you just slow cook that, diced tomatoes. You put the whole thing in, even with the juice, right? You put in some corn if you like corn. You put in the beans, the chili powder. Slice up an onion. You can grow an onion or chives. They're easy to grow, chives. Chop up some of that stuff, or put in, like I say, some onion powder. You could buy that in the cheapo spice rack. You could get chives in the cheapo spice rack at the Dollar Tree. Every time I go, I get one. Right. Cilantro, which is like if you're a salsa person, and you can make yourself a chili. You could take those saltine crackers and crumble them up and thicken up your chili. Or you can make a salsa and dip those crackers into the salsa. You see what I'm saying? It's like you can survive and thrive, and you don't have to suffer like on meals ready to eat, like sacks of rice, right? Or, freeze-dried whatever. And you could grow fresh stuff, and you could grow cilantro in your window if you like cilantro and you want that Tex-Mex type of flavor. Right? Or you could have parsley and oregano, or, these things grow wild that you'd be surprised. Anyway, I missed the, Another hour. So I missed it. We're an hour and 26 into the show. But I think I explained that to you, that there's a lot of fear mongering going on. A lot of people are worried about this, that, the other. So as far as the disinformation thing and the Ministry of Truth, the answer is get that shirt, then what? What are you going to do to us? Right? And if you feel you're in some area where you're like at risk of, I don't know. I mean, like I said, I don't really think they're going to haul you off to some FEMA camp. But if you're that paranoid, or you think it's possible, or if they start doing it, just get to the outskirts of town like me. See, look at my neighborhood. It's daylight out there. It's not a bad place. That house across the street looks a little worse for the wear, but they're remodeling that right now. So that's going to be looking really nice. Right? Look at the size of my backyard. My rent, mortgage, and insurance is mortgage, taxes, and insurance. I don't rent here. Mortgage, taxes, and insurance. I always forget to say it. I say it the wrong way. Look at my yard. It's only $200 is my mortgage here. Mortgage, taxes, and insurance. That's the bill. The bank, because it's like included in my mortgage, the bank pays my taxes and insurance. It all goes through like one place. I forward my tax bill and insurance thing to the bank and they pay it. But it's $200. It's like $200 a month. So even if it goes up something, $200 a month, man. And I grow I grow enough food for a family of, which I don't have, but I mean, I give it away. I grow plenty. So you could find places like this this is the edge of a town. It's an old industrial town, but this is like on the way out of town. It's like the last street till you leave town, more or less. But it's just a street. It's the main drag. There's traffic on it. We look at the coal trucks pass by sometimes and all that, feeding the power plants. But you can do that if you feel threatened, if you're caught in inner cities. You just got to look. Be honest with you, I'm not sponsored by anybody. Like I say, I'm not monetized. That YouTube thing behind me is fake. That's just a joke. That's me just messing with them. I just printed that out in my copier. It says for achieving more than 3 views. That's what it says. But I looked on that Zillow or something like that, and I looked at like 3 or 4 houses and found this, and then called the realtor and then started the whole process. And I was never inside this house until the day I bought it, till settlement, they call it. I had seen pictures, but I never got the chance to be in. And there was a question I had, I've told this before, about one thing, because there's like 1.5 baths in this place. $200 a month is my total cost. And I had called the realtor. I said, hey, could you go in there and take a picture? Because I thought it looked like there was a second bath on the first floor. And it turned out it was like a washroom, because this used to be a barber shop. But it was empty for about a year or two. All right. And it was in, I needed a good paint job and some fixing, caulking and painting, and the yard was a mess. But I fixed it up. Took me a year or two. And then this garden took me, garden is a work in progress that's taken like 5 to 6 years to get to that point. But it's like paradise almost. But there's still some ways I've got to go, and I got to shore up that fence on, the white fence needs a paint job. And, I got some problems to deal with, but like I say, it's my own place. Heck, I only have like 5 or 6 years to pay till this place is paid off. So even if the taxes go up, I'll be in a situation where, I'll still probably be paying the same amount. They doubled my taxes, but my mortgage is paid off. That'll just compensate for it. So whether you have a yard like I do and in an inexpensive neighborhood, usually it's a place on the edge of town where you're not going to be hassled, right? It's not necessarily, you want to avoid areas where there's a high crime district, right? Or if you just have a window that gets southern exposure and you set down a table or extend your windowsill out to put in some potted plants, as I described previously in this video, or if you have a small patio and you just put potted plants and grow things, you can live, survive, and thrive, right, with we'll call it a victory garden, for lack of better purpose. And you would be surprised. You cannot imagine the yields you get out of a lettuce plant, a kale plant. Let me enlarge this thing for you. It was taken with a crappy my other iPad. And I can't, so it's a little get modeled when I enlarge it. But on the right-hand side, there's this big bushy thing behind, there's a maple tree. There's the first box, and then there's this bushy thing, but behind that are 2 kale plants. And the one kale plant on the right is a kale plant I literally grew this winter. I'm talking about January in the house and I started to say it before, but I didn't finish it. You can get LED grow lights. LED lights use hardly any electricity whatsoever. They literally don't use hardly anything. In fact, if you go, even I have that great solar stuff. If you had like just a simple foldable solar panel and one of those power backup things like I have, you'll see at the end of the show, the show's just about over. And, you can grow this stuff indoors, even in a power down situation, a grid down situation. All right. Indoors, with LED grow lights. I did it in January in the mid-Atlantic states when it was like the temperature outside was like teens or 20s. Okay. You can do it. All right. So just think about all this stuff. It's not that crazy. And there was life before Twitter. And so this ministry of truth and this disinformation, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So what? Like I say, then what? What are you going to do? Close my account? Kick me off of YouTube? Fine and dandy. I don't care. Right? I think I've got enough shows. I have over 600 shows on here that, I've done my best to like go through things to teach people how to survive and thrive. Right? And dealt with things instead of these people that are on day in, day out, just reading the headlines and criticizing them and accomplishing nothing. I'm trying to affect positive change in your life, giving you realistic advice inexpensive ways. It's the same in my books. I touch on these subjects in my books too. I even recipes in some of the earlier books. And the idea is that, no, you can survive and thrive on like $20. You're building a window garden. All right. You could spend a couple $100 more and get yourself a foldable solar panel and a power backup thing. Do you see what I mean? You could spend $17 or $20 and get a shirt, and you could help. You could maybe change somebody else, get somebody else thinking along these lines. Everything you know is wrong. You don't know what you don't know. Then what? Be nice, right? For all those sourpusses and all these people angry, protesters. We want this, we want that, right? You just walk by them with a shirt that says be nice and a smile on your face, right? You don't have to confront anybody. You don't have to shout at anybody, right? It's really, people have that's why I say, and the other thing is ignore the media. The one thing those people can't stand is they can't stand people. They need attention. I talked about this yesterday. They thrive on it. Ignore them. Cut the cord. You don't need it. The cable goes out. Good riddance. I got rid of my last thing I had was satellite TV. Got rid of it. Glad I did. I don't even have a cell phone service. I use Wi-Fi on an old iPhone 6. It's an iPhone 6. I have a Wi-Fi app on there. It cost me $40 a year for phone service. A year. Imagine that. A year. $40 a year. And it hooks up to my home phone. And I can carry it all the way out in that backyard, and with that lounge chair leaning against the wall on a sunny day after I've done garden work. I'm just relaxing, soaking up some vitamin D, which is great for your immune system. Just getting a suntan, and I've got the phone out there. If somebody calls me, I can take a call. $40 a year. I'm telling you, you can do all this stuff. And if you go back to my shows while they're still up and all this stuff, I'm also on Rumble. And some other places, but check it out. It doesn't cost a lot of money. You just have to use some common sense, and and everything is about words. And who cares? Ministry of Truth, disinformation. Yeah, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Star Wars is disinformation, for crying out loud. There's, right? There's no Darth Vader. That's disinformation. Any kind of fictional novels, disinformation. See, the whole thing is absurd. That's what I'm trying to say. You have to laugh at this stuff. And if you get kicked off of Twitter, more power to you. It didn't exist, 15 years ago or something like that. Life was just fine before all these things, Hey, look, I enjoy doing this stuff sometimes. It's and I'm glad to share things with people. But, I've done my thing. I've got my clothing line out there that could help people. I've got my links to these power things that I've tested. See, the thing about everything I have here is that what I've done is I've tested my power backup system. Okay? So I'm pointing you to a place, and we'll see that right now, here. This shows. I'm pointing you to my Great Solar Stuff site, which I have. I own the site, but I don't own the products. I've tested the products on that site. In my books, they're for sale on Amazon. If you buy one for $9.95, I might make 50 cents or something. If you go to ROCKFLUX.com, TonyCaravanLive.com. It's the same site, and you'll see links to these shirts. There's the Be Nice shirt. I like the one in military green because I think it's, and using that military stencil type thing, I think it's a good statement. There's the Game Over hoodie, but you could get all of my sayings on these shirts, even the iconic me down in the lower right-hand corner on a bag or on a shirt. I've got one of those. I've bought every shirt. I have every book. I have the power backup. I've washed these shirts. All right. I've paged through these books. I've shown you the books. Get the print version of the books, by the way. Don't get the digital versions. The print, you want to have don't rely on anything. Anyway, this is it. Enjoy. Have a great day.
Good morning.
I hope your day is drier than mine. I know I'll be spending better part of the day going up, draining the water from the leaks. But I'll get through it. And so have a happy Saturday, a nice dry Saturday. And I hope something I said today will help you and guide you or at least give you peace of mind to know that you can survive and thrive, and you don't have to have a lot of money. You don't have to have hardly any money. You just have to use your common sense, listen to some of the stuff I said today, look at some of my other videos, read my books, or look at some other people's videos. There's plenty of this DIY stuff on the internet. Check it out now. Cheers. Take care.